Okay, so now coming to the original version of Bloom's taxonomy, and you see, the original taxonomy divided learning into three domains: cognitive, affective, psychomotor. But today we'll delving into the cognitive domain only, which is focused on the intellectual skill. And Bloom had provided 6 hierarchical levels of cognitive domain: knowledge, comprehension, application, analysis, synthesis, and evaluation. According to Bloom, the first goal of the teaching learning process is the acquisition of knowledge, which is actually receiving the information and reproducing it. Then comprehension, it is another level which we can say that it is the second stage. After acquiring the information, we have to comprehend it. Then application, that is apply, then analysis, then synthesis, and then evaluation. Each of this level are built on the previous one, moving from simple to complex cognitive skills. Now, at this taxonomy was revised by 2 of Bloom's students. In 2001, Bloom's former student, Lauren Anderson and David Crattrell, they revised the taxonomy, and they had brought some, fundamental changes. Those fundamental changes included, first one is that they used, verbs. Bloom had used nouns. Evaluation, synthesis, those terminologies were transformed or used as verbs, such as evaluation became evaluate, synthesis, then analysis become analyze. That is one. Then second one is reordering of the top 2 levels. In Bloom's original taxonomy, the top 2 levels were synthesis and then evaluation. Then again, it was reordered as evaluation and creation. And another change was emphasis on both knowledge dimensions and cognitive process. So you see, this revised cognitive level, there are 6 levels only, but knowledge is changed to remember, comprehension became understanding, application became apply, analysis became analyze, synthesis become evaluate, or evaluation and synthesis merged and it became evaluate. And then they added another one, that is create, which is production of new knowledge. Now, coming back to the Indian knowledge system, if we look at the Vedic education system, the teaching methods of Vedic education system, we all know that there was Gurukul system where students had to live with the teachers or the gurus. And the gurus usually used, there are lots of methods that were used in the Gurukula system, but predominantly there are 3 methods: Shravana, Manana, and Anuvaba or Nididhyasana. There's oral transmission, reflective contemplation, and experiential learning. Now let us go through all of them one by one. The first one is Shravana, that is listening and oral transmission. Shravana, it is not mere listening, or it is just not just hearing. It is a deep listening with attention. It is the first method that was applied in Vedic education system, because the Vedas were considered as Shruti. Shruti means that which is heard. They were passed down from one generation to the another generation orally, and that is one evidence that Shravana or listening was one method. Now you see, orality is again related to memorization, because at that time there is no system of writing down the text. And this is also evident in Tattiriya Samhita. There is one shloka in Tattiriya Samhita which means endless and are to be transmitted through tradition, that is oral hearing. So here you see the primary focus was on memorization through repetitive chanting. The hymns of the Vedas and the suktas, those all were passed down from generation to the generation by the Guru through oral practices. And but there, what was emphasized, they had emphasized the accuracy in pronunciation, pitch, and intonation. And what was the reason that they had emphasized upon accuracy in pronunciation? The reason was to preserve the sanctity of the text. Again, this is there is one text you can, if you any one of you want to read, you can read. It is Education in Ancient India, written by Altaka A.S., and it was published by Banaras Hindu University in 1944. In that book, Altaka has stated that the teacher used to recite a mantra, that is hymn, and the pupil repeated it several times until it was memorized accurately. Then the second method was manana, which means reflection or logical reasoning. So it is reflective thinking, and after Shravana days, after listening and memorizing the hymns or the mantras, the disciples or the sishyas, the students, had to reflect upon those mantras. Among them through dialectics. This is again evident in a shloka that is found in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. This shloka means that which cannot be spoken of by speech, but by which speech is spoken. Know that Ellen is Brahma. The meaning is that which you cannot speak, or which you cannot realize only through speaking, that can be realized when you go for finding out the hidden meanings. And to find out, for this reflection and logical reasoning, they used prashnottara. Prashnottara means question answer, that we are still using in our today's classroom. And samvada means dialogue form. It's dialogue, that means discussion, debates. And this is again supported by Radhakrishnan. Radhakrishnan had written one book, Indian Philosophy, Volume 1, which was published by Oxford University Press. In that book, he has also supported that the emphasis in the Vedic education was not on mere repetition of the mantras, but it was on understanding the rationale behind those orally echoed or orally versed mantras. Then the third one is Nididhyasana or Anubhava, which is contemplation, experience. It is related to internalization. Internalization means what? That you acquire the knowledge and you analyze it, and then you apply that knowledge in your day-to-day activities also. And this is again, there is another shloka in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. It states that the self is to be seen, heard about, reflected upon, and meditated upon. So it is about applying the knowledge you have gathered, that you have to apply it in your daily life practices. It is the final stage where you can attain the self-realization or liberation. Then the knowledge gets transformed into wisdom, where you become able to produce new knowledge. And this is again, supported by Aurobindo. There is one book written by Aurobindo, The Synthesis of Yoga, and it was published by Sri Aurobindo Ashrama Pondicherry, 1910. There he stated that true knowledge comes only when the student leaves the teachings. Mere intellectual grasp is incomplete without experience. Now, these are the three core methods, teaching methods used in Vedic education system, where from acquiring the information, remembering it, then reflection upon it, and then applying it. So there is also the hierarchy. Now, if we have a comparative glance on this hierarchy of methods, then we can see this. You see, in the cognitive domain we are talking about, in Bloom's taxonomy, we can see that there is a similarity between what Bloom's taxonomy states and what the Vedic education system had applied. You see, we had three: Sravana, Manana, Nididhyasana method, listening, reflection, meditation. Now, here, if you see that the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad states, what it states, the self must be seen, heard. Here means Shravana, reflected upon, Manana, and meditated upon, Nididhyasana. Now, you see in the Bloom's taxonomy. It starts from the basic knowledge, the first state, that is knowledge, and to the higher order thinking. Then similarly, another sloka from Bhagavad Gita in chapter 4, verse 34, it states that Tad vidhi pranipatina pariprashanna sevaya. So here, pariprashna means questioning and service. Sevaya means service. It represents an inquiry-based learning, which is comparable to evaluation and analysis in Bloom's model. Now, you see, this is a comparative glance. You say there is Sravana, which is listening or receiving knowledge, which is again similar to the remembering or understanding level of Bloom's taxonomy. Then Manana, which is reflective thinking or logical reasoning, which is again similar to analyze or evaluation. Then Nididhyasana, that is deep contemplation or internalization, that is again similar to the application or creation. So you can find out the similarities between the Vedic teaching method and Bloom's taxonomy. So this comparative glance give us a more clear view. You see, the Bloom's first level, this is the, here I am using the revised one of 2000, revised in 2001. The first one is remember, that is recalling the information received. In Indian pedagogy, it is Sravana. But now, and also now I want you to be aware why we are discussing this. Why we are discussing this? Because the NEP is also, emphasizing upon this Bloom's taxonomy. And why it is important? Because we can see, like most of us have experienced that what our students rely upon. Nowadays, students are relying upon ChatGPT, AI, and different tools, which gives them the information. They just reproduce it. Even when we give them assignment, they will just copy from the ChatGPT, right? But why do we give them the assignment? So that they can have a deep understanding of the topic, so that they can develop their critical thinking capacity, they can develop their analytical capacity. If we have to develop that, then we have to follow these levels. And this is not something we are taking from the Western culture or some from foreign scholar, though it is now we are terming it as Bloom's taxonomy. But if you carefully look, the root is in our teaching method only. So from remembering, we have to make them, we have to make them able so that they can explain the ideas and concepts. That is manana. Then, so that they can also not only explain the ideas, but they become able to use or apply the information in new situations or novel situation, which is again the Indian knowledge systems or Indian philosophy terms as nididhyasana. Then analysis, that is breaking the information into parts, then that again comes in manana. Evaluation, that is, evaluation means what? That you attach values to your decisions, you justify your actions. That is again nididhyasana. And then create, that is where your knowledge become wisdom. You become able to produce something original, and which is very important in the aspect of research in higher education also. That is anuvaba, that is experiencing. So this is a comparative glance of Bloom's taxonomy and Indian pedagogy. In this way, Bloom's taxonomy is rooted in Indian knowledge system. So that, and it is also evident by in a recent study. This study was done by Tawalri and Tawalri in 2020. In their study, they highlight the alignment between the Bloom's cognitive, affective, and psychomotor domains and the qualities outlined in the Ayurvedic texts. They note that the Ayurvedic education system emphasizes shastra, that is the theoretical knowledge, practical experience, along with ethical conduct, which again parallels with the Bloom's framework or the Bloom's taxonomy. So in this way, we can trace the root of Bloom's taxonomy. None of us today know whether Bloom was aware of the Vedic education system or not. Again, that is another topic for research. But one thing is certain, that whatever Bloom had suggested in 1956, that was already practiced in our ancient education system, mostly in the Vedic education system or the Gurukula system. So this is the one part of my lecture, and these are some of the references I have used for this presentation. So this presentation ends here, and then moving from this, okay. So moving from this, okay, we have got some comments. The traditional Indian learning process can be encapsulated through the triadic model, Shravana, Manana, and Nideshana. This sequence correlates closely with the progression from understanding to application and synthesis in Bloom's taxonomy. Yes, yes, that is what I have already presented. And also Govinda has written it. Shravana corresponds to Bloom's remembering and understanding, Manana and critical reflection, and applying and analyzing. Yes, 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 you're correct, Govind Bhattacharya. This is similar to Bloom's taxonomy. So again, apart from that, I have chosen this topic because I belong to the field of education. That's why. But apart from that, when we are talking about Indian knowledge system, I'd also like to share with you some of my experiences, not only as an academician but also as a writer. So what I would like to share with you, when we talk about Indian knowledge system, then we must have a pluralistic view. And we must also delve into the author narratives of Indian knowledge system. Why it is important? Because when we are documenting, and when we talk about documentation and preservation, then we also must look into both the Aryan and non-Aryan culture. When we talk about the Indian knowledge system, it is not only about the Aryan culture. There are so many century-old practices. There are so many century-old beliefs which need to be, which have scientific value. We just have to establish those values. For example, many tribal people, many communities have many practices which have values in today's life, and which can also help us to overcome the current challenges or challenges of our present society. Also, there are so many culture, there are so many knowledge systems which are not documented, which are, which are after generation, which are losing. That is one thing. For example, one of my experience I had, there is a community called Dimasa tribe. Among the Dimasa tribe, they have a ritual of Grasimang. So what is Grasimang? Grasimang is when someone dies, then the community women comes to a place and there they cry. Some people, some scholar want to refer it as death song, but actually it is not a song. It is actually a cry, or this kind of weeping. But that also has a kind of a tune, specific tune, and those are orally transmitted from one generation to the other generation. But there is very less research on this culture. So as all of you are being to this course, and also we are focusing upon research. So I think all of us should focus upon such kind of research which can help us to document those practices, those culture, those beliefs, because those are also knowledge systems which have existed for the centuries. Like there are many tribes in Arunachal Pradesh, and they have unique cultural practices. But you see, I had done a project. I had received the travel grant of Government of India. Then we had done field study, and there I had made some people who knows some forgotten languages, or you can say dialects, but those have not been preserved because they do not have even the script. So these are the things that we can do through IQAC. Okay, there is one question: is Bloom's taxonomy efficient? sufficient for addressing the spiritual or ethical dimensions emphasized in. Yes, Bloom's taxonomy is because Bloom's taxonomy doesn't talk about cognitive domain only. It talks about all the three domains. Here I am focusing on cognitive domain. Why? Because now we have now in present scenario we have to do lesson plan, and that there we focus on the cognitive domain only. But it is also related to not only the spiritual or ethical dimensions, which comes on the affective domain, but it is also again related to the psychomotor domains also in Bloom's taxonomy, and there are some scholarly perspectives on that also. So in we can see there are some similarities. You see the affective domain in Bloom's taxonomy, it focuses on emotions and values. Then it is again it is the values which are inscribed in the text like Bhagavad Gita and other secular text. And likewise the psychomotor domain, if we talk about that, that is concerning about physical skill, it is also again reflected in tradition, because you see creation, because it talks, when you talk about spirituality and ethical dimensions, then again it is about creation. The Bloom's taxonomy is talking about, it has changed in its revised form, it is talking about creation or production of original knowledge. And when it has to be original knowledge, then there has to be ethical dimension, because if you do not follow, or if we do not follow ethical considerations, then it cannot be an original work. So again, it is spontaneously or naturally linked to it. I hope I have answered your question. And so that was a very brief presentation on Bloom's taxonomy. And if anyone have any question, you can ask. Also, again, not as a resource person, but as the convener of this course, I'd like to share with you all that you have to provide a research proposal. And for the, okay, I have got a question. As Bloom's original taxonomy divided learning into three domains, and the cognitive domain focused on conscious intellectual skills, how valid in Bloom's taxonomy in representing learning as a series of deliberate mental steps? If cognitive neuroscience studies, Lippitt, John Hines, and Patrick Haggard reveals that many decisions and problem-solving processes occur unconsciously. Is problem-solving process occur unconsciously? Actually, not unconsciously. It is through Gestalt, which was again proved by the German psychologist. So Gestalt psychologists have, it is not unconscious, but it is the insight, and that insight is developed only through when you go forward one by one, because you see, you cannot expect a child to solve problems or to take the right decisions who doesn't have experiences, right? So that is a very simple example. So when we forward a child step by step, then only the insight is developed. So in that way, Bloom's taxonomy is very much valid in representing, because the validity of Bloom's taxonomy has already been proven by the Vedic education system. That's why we have the great scholars from the Vedic time. And then what about liberation in IQAC? There's a goal of moksha in IQAC is aligned with Bloom's highest level of creating. So moksha, the liberation, that is what? Self-realization. So the Vedas, it is moksha means what? Moksha means self-realization, self-attainment. And when you know, that is to know ourselves. And when we know ourselves, then only we become able to create something new, right? Otherwise, how we will create something? Then from Deepu has written, Deepu Posamaturi, from my perspective, Bloom's taxonomy presents learning as a series of conscious steps, but cognitive neuroscience reveals that many decisions are made unconsciously before we become aware of them. This means Bloom's model doesn't fully capture how learning actually happens and should be revised to include this unconscious process. That is again a topic of debate again, because you see, unconsciously we can make the decisions, but without having prior experience, how we will take the decision? We must have some kind of prior experiences, right? And without those experiences, we cannot take the appropriate decision. Then can we apply Bloom's taxonomy in all types of presentation? Yes, it's up to us actually. We can use if we want, but today, yes. So that is again now in this presentation itself. I have not applied Bloom's taxonomy fully because it is not possible for me to cover all the steps. So I think there is no other question. Vedamini Vikram Singh has raised a hand. Do you have any question, ma'am?
Yes, sir. I just wanted to share my perspective on this.
Your voice is not audible.
Hello, can you hear me? Hello.
Vedamini Vikram Singh, ma'am, your voice is not audible. Kindly write your question in the chat box.
Can you hear me now? Hello. Can you hear me? Hello. 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 Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Mr. Jintu, can you hear me?
Vedamini Vikram Singh, ma'am, your voice is not audible. If you have any question, kindly write in the chat box. From my perspective, we cannot compare Western and Eastern models in this way. The self is situated very differently in both cases, and the object of knowledge is different as well. Both traditions have different approaches to phenomenology. This is not actually a comparison. If you have attended the lecture, then you must understand it is tracing the root. It is not a comparison. Rather, what we are trying to say, we are not comparing Bloom's taxonomy and IKS. Rather, here the point is that what Bloom's taxonomy has stated in 1956 is already been practiced in the Indian knowledge system. And how does the layered understanding of cognition in IKS, such as the concept Manasa, Buddhi, and Chitta, offer an alternative or contemporary model to Bloom's taxonomy, particularly in accounting for unconscious process in learning? Learning, when it is unconscious, it is not full learning. It is an accepted and universally and widely accepted notion in psychology and in educational psychology that when it is unconscious, then we do not term it as learning, because learning which occurs unconsciously, that is no longer lasting, and the processes and the information which are processed through unconscious efforts are not able to apply. Those we do not term as learning in educational psychology. Okay, so regarding your our practice and understanding was different. So in the last segment and divisive divisive way of organizing knowledge will have to give away to a more holistic approach if one is to adopt IKS. Why we have to adopt IKS? Can I ask you, Vedamini Vikram Singh? It is not about adopting IKS, it is about practicing IKS.